Evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Evening.
Evening, Kay.
Hi.
I'm saying hello to Martin, but he's in disguise.
I love it. He's a great sense of humour. I really do. Oh, he's moved. Right, it's 8 o'clock. I think we should make a start.
Sorry, Keith. I appreciate. I'm visiting. I've got the kids tonight, so I might have to disappear periodically. So I know I'm not on the committee, but I just didn't want anyone to think I was being rude and just running out the room there because I had enough of watching you all.
Well, you shouldn't be a panelist. You should be on the attendee. You. Right. Okay. Right, I want to kick off the meeting. It's 1 minute past now. I want to, just before we get into the formal agenda, I think our group, or I would like our group, to show our respects to our dear friend, recently departed Councillor David Mills. I won't go through his biog. I think you all know it. Well, certainly those of you who've been around for a long time. So if you don't mind, I would like to have 1 minute silence, starting from now. Thank you very much. My timer telling me the minute was up. Right, onto the agenda. Apologies. Do we have any?
Yeah, just from Councillor Nagra.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any declarations of interest? Councillor Rowland.
I'd like to say I'm the chairman of governors at Southlake Primary School, and so I won't be taking part in the later discussion about grants.
Okay. Deborah?
Yeah.
Have advice. I'm not chairman of school governors, but I am a school governor at Addington. I don't think I need to declare any because I don't Addington.
They're not asking for anything at Addington, are they?
No, not that I know of. Okay. I was just curious that Beth. I'm surprised. I guess they're.
It's because there's an application for a grant.
Oh, okay.
PTA piece.
Thank you. Right, minutes of the meeting held on 19th of January, agenda item 3. The minutes were provided in the full council agenda of February. Can I approve them, please? And I will sign them at the most appropriate moment. Can't see anybody objecting. Okay. Then, sorry.
It's fine. Sorry, a hand was up, but it's gone back down. Sorry.
Okay. Agenda item 4, minutes of the extraordinary meeting held on 2nd of March on page 5. Do we have any comments on the accuracy of the report? I'm looking, I can't see any hands up or anybody waving. Okay, so they're approved. Moving on to 5A, the budgetary control to receive report SR1021 on page 7. Over to you, Deborah, to give us the highlights.
Yeah, thank you. In terms of expenditure on page 7, the council has spent 97% of the revised budget estimate. All costs are below the revised estimate figures apart from democratic costs, and that was simply an overlap with Linda leaving and Matt starting, so we were paying 2 people for a couple of weeks. Overall, a total underspend on the original budget of £161,408 was achieved, but against the revised estimate figure, there was still an underspend of £34,500, just about. In terms of income, which is on page 8, the council's benefited by being able to claim furlough for staff through the year, and in December was able to receive a Tier 4 local restriction support grant. That relates to premises that were legally required to close due to restrictions being put in place to manage the coronavirus and save lives. A total furlough of £67,053 relating to the Oakwood Centre office staff who aren't all working or only working part-time, and venue staff has been claimed, and a Tier 4 lockdown grant of £13,357 was received in respect to the Oakwood Centre. Total income from furlough, Tier 4 grant, bookings and WTCMI was £192,729, 43% over the revised budget estimate. That's largely due really to the last lockdown, which obviously the budget was mostly set before, well, it was set just about before the last lockdown. And so they hadn't been included in the revised figures at the time. Overall, the committee has ended the year having spent 91% of the net revised budget estimate. So we've still come in under.
Okay, I saw Councillor McCann had his hand up even before you spoke, so he's done his homework.
Really?
Tom?
Okay, thank you. I've got two quick questions before I go on to my primary question. I received an email from the Town Council informing us as a panellist for strategy and resources. I'm not here as a panellist, I'm here as a member of the committee. Can you clarify when this has changed, or has it changed? Second point is, I believe members of the council who are not on this committee are being referred to as panellists, and I'm confused. When did this change? Why has it changed? Aren't they here as elected officials on the council and not identified as panellists of some sort of game show? Can somebody clarify those 2 points before I move on to my main point?
I can clarify that. Zoom calls webinar participants panelists, and that hasn't changed.
Am I here as an elected member, not a panellist?
Yes, you are, but Zoom calls you a panelist, and we can't change that. That's what.
So what you're saying is this is a Zoom reference, not a council's reference.
It is, yes.
That makes it clear. Thank you. The town clerk stated that we qualified for Tier 4 lockdown grant. What has changed since the first 2 lockdowns that meant we couldn't apply for them then and change so we could get it this time?
Councillor McCann, I have no idea what's changed, except that we were legally required to close due to restrictions being put in place to manage coronavirus. That's what reference to that Tier 4 local restriction support grant, that's what it mentions. And it is the first time we could do that. What I don't know is if before that other places managed to get some kind of grant like that, support grant like that, but I think not, but I don't actually know that.
Chair, it seems quite, I am surprised. At the beginning of this process, I asked the council in an email, were they applying for the first round of grants and the second round of grants when eventually they came? I was assured that they didn't qualify, and the officers knew why they didn't qualify. What I'm hearing now is that you don't know if you did qualify. You could have qualified, but nobody checked, and certainly nobody has found out what has changed, which is rather surprising. Sorry, I haven't finished speaking. Which is rather surprising when you consider the amounts of monies that were available to the council could have been made available to the council and helped it specifically from the government. If the town council was saying that it doesn't know why it got the second one, then the last grant that they qualified for, then perhaps the council should go away, find out why it qualified, how it qualified, and to report back to this committee to see if it could have or indeed should have applied for the other grants. Thank you, Chair.
Can I just you're making a sweeping assumption, which might be correct, Councillor McCann, that this LRSG Tier 4 grant was available before. I don't think it was, but I don't know for definite. There were leisure facilities grants available prior to the lockdowns, but because we didn't outsource our leisure facility, we were not qualified. And I do know that the town clerk did exhaustively chase that, and we even did it through our MPs as well to chase it. So I think before you make some delicate comments about the council and staff, I think you need to clarify, unless you know that the Tier 4 LRSG was available. I think it was a new grant, but I don't know for certain. I'm sure Deborah will go away and find the answer and report back.
I can do that.
That would be good if we can report back and let members know what has changed, because it was a surprise for me to see that we'd qualified for it. And I know the government did change some bits and pieces along the way, and I would have hoped the town council would have kept itself abreast, but the town clerk has said they have no idea why they got this one, not the other one. Perhaps somebody should be going in and having a look and finding out why, because it's not over yet.
Can I just say that I think the reason we got it, I believe the reason we got it was because we were legally required to close our centres.
You've been legally required to close your centres from the beginning. That hasn't changed.
I don't think the Tier 4 local restriction support was available before. I will check. I will talk to someone at Wokingham Borough Council and find out.
That would be very helpful for members to understand what has changed that now allows us to qualify. Thank you.
Can I ask you, Councillor McCann, to just moderate your language? What has changed? I said you're assuming the Tier 4 LRSG was available in previous lockdowns. You don't know. I don't know. Deborah doesn't know. She has said she will go and find out what the information is, and she'll get back to you. So please, could you just be a little bit gentler with your language? Thank you.
Sorry, Chair. I've asked a question. I've asked that the committee be informed and the council be informed on what has changed.
So
thank you.
We go to item 5B, which is approve the payments on page 9 onwards. Any questions? I'm looking in hands.
Yes, can I ask, at the top of page 9, there was quite a big boiler repair. Can I ask which boiler?
Yeah, it was Woodford Park Leisure Centre.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, was that unexpected?
Partly, it had been failing a bit, and we'd changed from the gravity fed system to a pressurised system to update it. But yeah, it was failing.
Oh, right, okay, thank you. Oh yes, one other thing. Sort of 2/3 of the way down page 9, there was annual washroom fees of £2,097. What's that?
That is it the PHS one? Sorry, you're looking at.
Yes, it is. That's right.
Yeah, so that's the sanitary bins, nappy bins, and a couple of other items of sanitary ware things in the toilets in the different buildings, including the public toilet in the town centre, which has stayed open throughout and sort of slightly more sporadically in the other centres. What was frustrating about those was we weren't able to negotiate a change in that in that contract, regardless of the buildings being shut, which was quite frustrating. That's why they're there.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Oh, this is annoying, isn't it? Yes. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, so we need to approve those payments. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Okay. Okay, right.
Sorry,
can you-
Chair.
Sorry, Councillor McCann. All right, thank you. Right, so can you all lower your hands, please? Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, Kevin, are you doing that?
Yeah, yes, I'll lower hands. Yeah.
Okay, good. All those against approval? Nobody. And all those abstaining? Okay, so one councillor hasn't voted.
I counted all 8 on the approval.
Okay, right. So then 5C, page 15, the internal auditors. Deborah, can you talk about it?
I can. I hope everyone's had a chance to read it. It's quite a long report. You can see that we had, mostly we were dealing with them remotely, and that seemed to work very well. They're pretty happy with the way that we have adapted to the things we require, well, the things we couldn't do anymore, and the way we were working, and we're particularly in touch with Ash, the finance officer, all the time. They've noted that we've had payments of COVID-19 grants from the Borough Council, which is what we talked about before. They're happy about, they've said that extensive due diligence has been carried out by the town clerk, which has provided the council with sufficient information for them to consider budget and precept setting for the 21-22 year. And they just generally, I mean, I hope people have had a chance to read it. I don't think you need to read all the way through. They're on page 17. They've shown what they checked as part of their process as our internal auditors, including the minutes of the council and committee meetings, policies and procedures, bank and cash, investments, budgetary management, income and expenditure, VAT claims, COVID-19 arrangements, budget last year and this year, and transparency of the council website. And in terms of the findings, you'll see there's a list of good practice that they have included in the report. Do you want me to go through every single one of those, or are you happy for me to?
Nodding.
Yeah.
People
Was that nodding or not?
Councillors have an opportunity to ask questions on any specific item, I think. Here we go. Councillor Rowland first. You got in before Tom.
Oh, that's good at my age. Thank you, Keith. Congratulations, Deborah, on getting a good report. It's been quite difficult. I know, having been through a remote audit myself, it's not always easy. The one thing that disappoints me is that they thought the committee, the emergency committee, was a good idea. I don't quite see how they come up with that conclusion, because it kept most members in the dark, and one party totally in the dark. But apart from that, it's a good report.
Yeah, thank you.
Chair.
Councillor McCann.
Thank you very much. Page 17. Okay. VAT claims. Is this VAT claims on items which Woodley Town Council has spent and none of its affiliated organisations or associations? Is my first question. Second question is on your good practice, VAT again. And this is maybe more getting me up to speed, does the Town Council do monthly VATs, or are they still doing quarterly VATs? And my third point, which is on the last line of page 17, was there any informal recommendations that the auditors gave? And if there was, should we have a list? If there was, should we have that as a normal rolling thing? Because I'm quite sure there's a large difference between formal recommendations and informal recommendations. And if we can see a pattern of informal recommendations, then we can see how things are being tweaked and nudged towards certain directions. Whereas if it waits as long as formal recommendations, members will never find out about it until it's almost too late. Those 3 points, please, Chair.
Okay. Would you like me to reply?
Yes, please, Deborah.
In terms of other organisations reclaiming, we do reclaim for the Woodley Town Centre Management Initiative. So if they spend anything, that's included in our VAT returns. In terms of how often, that's every 3 months. And I don't believe we had any informal recommendations made to us this time.
Okay. The 3 following questions are, if another organisation is raising money and spending money, would the town clerk or the finance officer show me what regulations allow the town council to reclaim money that was spent by another group of people? For example, if they're letting out the pitches, I assume there's a VAT in there. I don't know. I've not been involved in this organisation. So I'd like a little bit more of an understanding of how that works. And is this normal custom and practice? Is there any reason why you can't go to VAT monthly? And my third point, to the last point, is wouldn't it be reasonable for members to know if there was informal recommendations suggested by the auditors?
Can I take that last one first? I don't recall there being any informal recommendations. Mostly, as from my understanding and from speaking to them, they have made formal recommendation about what they think we should do on a particular item. I can't think of anything just at the moment. In terms of monthly VAT, I don't know if we can do it monthly. 3 monthly seems to work fine at the moment. And in terms of dealing with the VAT for the Woodley Town Centre Management Initiative, we have actually been doing that right from the very beginning. But the reason that they've become part of the organisation, although a separate part in terms of their own earmarked reserves, for example, the reason they joined with us was so to formalise that arrangement, because it probably wasn't very helpful the way it was working before.
Thank you, Chair. That answers 2 of the 3. My first point was about, isn't it unusual to be claiming money back that was spent by another organisation who we give grant monies to, who may be including VAT and something? I don't even know. I assume they're not VAT registered, otherwise they would be doing it. And if we are doing that, could someone provide me with what regulations allow this council to claim money that was spent by another organisations that we give grants to? And I assume they will have receipts for Woodley Town Centre Management Initiative, not Woodley Town Council. That's what I'm asking. So if you haven't got the information available, then I'd be quite happy for the officers to go away and come back and report on what regulations allow. If they're not available, if they don't know, then they contact the VAT office and get them to clarify that we're doing something correct, irrespective of how long it's been going, whether it be a year, 2 years, 5 years, or 10 years. It'd be no bad thing to find out if we're making sure we're following the rules. Chair?
Okay,
I could do that.
Thank you.
right. Anything more? Councillor McCann, your hand's still up? No?
The officers take them down.
Done, okay. Right, so moving on, item 6, page 19, the Oakwood Central update. That's you, Kevin, I guess? Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Fairly brief in terms of reopening. Obviously, the centre is remains closed at the moment, including the cafe. They're looking to come back when people are allowed inside, assuming the roadmap goes to plan. So from 17th of May, they're looking at being able to get back into the swing of that, and that's when we're looking to reopen up the centre. We'd open up the toilets at that point, obviously for the cafe and to the public in general. We're looking at how that might affect the office working. So we're looking at that at the moment. So we'll confirm that to members so they know what's happening. But we're just looking at how that pans out in terms of people coming back. And hopefully, as soon as we can, we'll get those hours and things back to normal. One of the things we have been able to do is, which has been going really well, is the vaccination clinics. They've been running very smoothly. They're really pleased with the site. It works really well in terms of people coming in and out. They've got a really good, one-way throughput of people, which works really well. And they've got a number of bookings in. So from next week and the week after, I think they've got 2 days a week on the Friday and Saturday as the vaccination program ramps up. So we're accommodating that wherever we can. Obviously, we're earning some money from that as well, which is really good news. So that's kind of one bit of good news, I guess. The blood donation services and sessions have been carrying on, which again, they've been unaffected really, but work really well because the building is just designed in a helpful way in that sense. And we've had a few other bookings that have been able to return since the restrictions changed from the 12th of April. Including things like the Czech school with different numbers and quite a lot of different procedures in place. There's a lot of information about that, particularly relating to education and out of school settings and things like that through the government website. We've been asking for risk assessments from any organisations wanting to come back so that we can check what we think against what precautions they've got in place so that we can have something joined up for when they do come back into the building. And that started from this weekend just gone. So just simple things like we're double checking that we've got the sanitizer stations stocked up and things like that, and that they've got access to the right rooms because they've carefully managed the numbers that they can have in each rooms and put groups into smaller support bubbles and things to keep them separate while they're operating. And that it's early days, but that seems to be going okay. And I think by the time the next kind of tranche of bookings come back in, we're hoping that the restrictions will have been lifted further and the regulations probably a bit clearer. But we've had a lot of inquiries, which is really promising. Everything from all the kids' birthday parties and other social bookings that weren't able to happen. We've got lots of inquiries about those, which is really encouraging. And I think once we get through into the summer period, we'll see that side of things take off. If anything, we've probably got a bit of a challenge managing some of those things with the vaccination sessions and other things, but we're very much looking forward to some sort of return to normal from July onwards. Councillor Anderson has a hand up, Chair.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. Kevin, just to clarify, is there a list anywhere of how many participants or how many people can be in each one of our facilities at the moment? Because obviously we want to try and maintain a bit of social distancing and when people can go back. So are you going to publish a list on the website or anything?
Yeah, we have got some information. Some of it has changed in so much as depending on the activity, some of those things are slightly different. So there's really clear guidance with things like the preschool and toddler groups and things like that. When it gets into the other education settings, it's much more risk assessment based and down to the operator having been able to establish what they think is a reasonable, bubble in terms of number of kids, you know, how many staff, what the interactions are between those. And I think that might be the way forward. I think for a lot of things, it's kind of very much a risk assessment element to it, because it's not quite one size fits all. Sorry, that doesn't quite answer your question. Yes, we do have a number for each of the rooms, which is kind of based on the restrictions and what you can physically get people 6 feet apart, 2 meters apart rather, within a room. So yeah, we could probably make that a bit clearer. We have communicated that to hirers as we've spoken to them, and tried
yes,
to
yes. The reason I raised it is because we very helpfully had some feedback to one of the groups that I'm involved in, but I couldn't find it anywhere on the website.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'll have a look at that. What we were trying to do was not kind of send out a message that might not be quite accurate, because we want to talk to people about their booking and how we can, you know, try and adjust it. But
I
yeah.
like the approach of them doing a risk assessment as well, because I think it's important that we understand that things will, it's a bit of a moving feast, isn't it?
It
They
is.
need to be mindful of that. So thank you, Kevin. That's very helpful.
Okay, no problem.
Councillor Rowland.
Thank you, Keith. Could I just ask a question about vaccinations? Is it only the Oakwood Centre that they're using for vaccinations?
It is at the moment. We did talk to them about the other venues. At the moment, that's what they're looking at, and that's been working really well for them in terms of, I think, their staff teams and having that kind of one focal point. But it's not restricted to that from our perspective. So that, you know, we could do more if they wanted it.
Okay, thank you, Kevin.
Councillor McCann.
Thank you. I asked several meetings ago when this was raised about Woodley Town Council doing vaccinations about this. Would we be getting paid? Would we be asking for money? What was the possible process from that? I was assured by the leader of the council that if Woodley Town Council did this, there would be money following that. So my question is, are we being paid to do this? Which, you know, okay, fair enough. So if we're being paid to do this, if so, how much? Next question after that is, will we be intending to carry on doing this beyond the 21st of June, where lockdown restrictions are no longer applied to the council's facilities or any other of our buildings? If not, why not? Have we thought about it? And my third point, if we are being paid for this, are we in breach of Tier 4 lockdown regulations, which say you have to be shut? Because I believe we're being paid money, which means we're not shut. And I will infer from the town clerk's first answer on my first lot of questions was the town council probably isn't aware if it's in breach of Tier 4 lockdown grant restrictions, because the town council wasn't aware of how they qualified for it. So that's to you, Chair. Could someone answer those 3 points?
Well, obviously it's got to be for the town clerk, because she's the one who does the work.
In terms of income being paid to the town council, I'm very pleased to report that Wokingham Borough Council are paying the £25 an hour that we agreed to charge them. So I think that's a win for the town council. In terms of having to be shut, actually there are some things that can still go on at the Oakwood Centre despite the Tier 4 restriction, and that is blood donors. Kevin, what else was there?
Vaccination specifically, actually.
Vaccination specifically, but also we're allowed to hold some meetings, usually sort of families who are having some difficulties as well.
One-to-one counselling and support groups were able to continue. And again, from the 12th of April, that's changed to include education settings and a number of other things.
Okay, well, that's 2 of the 3 questions answered. What about the other one?
I can't remember what your other one was, I'm afraid.
About whether we would look to continue? Yes,
Yeah,
we would. And I think this is a really good opportunity for us to, we've built a relationship there and shown the strengths of the building for that type of activity. So yeah, I think that would hope that would be an ongoing.
Okay, thank you for that. That's 3 clear questions answered clearly. And what I would like to know is, do we then need to make a formal decision? Because we made the decision as at P&R. Do we need to ratify that beyond the COVID lockdowns and all the restrictions, or is the terms and references within the strategy and resources committee strong enough to allow us to be flexible enough to do what we want to do continuously until maybe this Christmas? We don't really know.
I think we're able to take bookings as we wish to. We might have a bit of juggling to do to be able to continue doing the vaccination sessions where we can. What we have done is spoken to our regular hirers who've been really supportive and understanding about the importance of the vaccination programme. And what we've said is, there may be times where we need to adjust some things. We might need to talk about dates or different rooms or something like that in order to continue with the vaccination programme as much as we can. So at the moment, that's working really well. And we don't know quite what sort of dates they'll be looking for beyond next month, to be honest. So
yeah, absolutely. I get it's very fluid, and we should be doing as much as we can possibly do in the town council. I completely get that. But there will be terms and conditions that the vaccine organisations will need that will restrict our usage. And we really need to be getting in there and having those conversations now before we get to the point where we're taking bookings and then cancelling them, or we could have some quite disappointing. So can you encourage me by saying you will actively go in and make sure that we sort this out before we get to and beyond the 21st of June? Thank you.
I can, yeah. We're speaking with them week in, week out. And as they get their information on when they're going to get vaccines, they're straight on the phone and we book them in. So we're as up to date with it as they are at the moment.
Okay. Right. Councillor Brindley.
Just a question regarding tier system, because we're not in during the 3rd lockdown, we weren't in a tier system, were we? So I know we were questioning this tier 4 payment. When we went into lockdown, the 3rd lockdown, which is being phased out now, there was no tier system. It's just a thought. But we were, before Christmas, we went into tier 4 for a period of time. So I think that's what we need to query. I know it's got nothing to do with the Oakwood Centre update, just a thought.
I'm sure the town clerk appreciates your
no, it's just that we're not in a tier system at the moment. So and I'm sure that the town clerk will ask a suitable question, but I'm just saying that that may be the reason we're not entitled to a tier 4 payment, because we're not in a tier 4.
Sounds logical. Okay, if we've exhausted questions and comments, let's move on to the Town Electors Working Party. I'm going to suggest we take all these 3 as one, if that's okay with the committee. I don't know, I'm just wondering who would like to lead on this, the town clerk, or?
If that's okay. Then
yeah, no, fine. Go ahead.
And then my colleagues on the working party are here to help. Okay, so we discussed the format of the previous town electors meetings, and the fact that they weren't very successful in pulling in the residents to take part. So when we got together for our first meeting, we just put some ideas together in terms of how we can actually improve it. and entice more residents to take part. And it was agreed that we would, whatever we had in the pipeline going on in the last year and going forward would be covered in this meeting by the town clerk, so that we inform the residents what's been going on. We would then involve some of the organisations that we either pay for, like Redibus, and other voluntary organisations that have been helping through the pandemic. And then at our last meeting, we all agreed the actual timeline of how we were going to plan that within the hour, because we do not want to go over that particular timeline. So you can see on the minutes of the last meeting, which was the 15th of April, it's clearly outlined what we're going to do. We're going to have the mayor open it. Then the town clerk will go through, sorry, no, town clerk's later, but we will have a very, very short presentations of 5 minutes each of the various organisations that we thought would be of benefit for our residents. And then an open forum at the end for questions. Juliet, I don't know whether you, and Richard, I don't know whether you want to add anything to, I'll just summarise.
Thank you. I think the thing that I would like to say is that it's been a joy, actually, and been really lovely to work on this as a sort of a cross-party group. And Richard and Sade have been delightful. And, you know, we think we've got something together here that's not wildly innovative, but is slightly different and will allow people to participate a little bit more. And we're looking for the support you know, the sort of agreement of the group to be able to move this forward. And I think small baby steps, you know, we're doing this remotely and everything that comes with. If this works, even to a greater degree than they have in the past, then it's the opportunity for us to sort of reboot and maybe do a little bit more of this next year. But this is the first step. You know, we wanted that sort of big engagement. We've got a really nice comms strategy worked out with it. Continue?
Please do.
Yeah. Got a really nice comms strategy worked out with Anushka around social media. So, you know, if the group approves that this evening, we can hit the button and we can move forward with it. I think the thing we really wanted was to understand what this would look like from the point of view of a citizen of Woodley and how we would engage with them. And the thought of sitting and listening to councillors at length talk about very detailed things, we didn't think was terribly engaging. So we want to keep it high level. We want to keep it positive. We want to make it colourless in terms of politics. We want to make it about the citizens and the people of Woodley. And that is the purpose. So thanks, Sade, and thank you, Richard. I think it's been a really helpful group.
Thanks, Amy. Richard, you got anything to add to that?
I think first of all, I'd like to echo that sentiment. It was a really good working party to be part of. I, you know, really enjoyed bouncing ideas around in the manner that we did in the open forum with the officers as well, who were, you know, very helpful and keen to contribute. You know, I think the thing that appeals to me most about it is that we've moved away from that dry format, and hopefully people of Woodley will want to come and hear about some of those external agencies, but also with the, you know, again, I think I've seen some mock-ups of some of the media that will go out around it, really encouraging people to come along and own their town. And, you know, I'm really hopeful that it will generate some good dialogue at the end. I anticipate we'll get some difficult questions and quite rightly so, but I think, you know, we'll get a good temperature check if it works, and it's always a little bit of a chance. But my philosophy on that was you know, it's going to struggle to be worse than what it was, and if I can say that, I shouldn't say that, but you know, and like I say, I'm really passionate that we give this a go. Obviously, you know, I'm here as an observer this evening, but you know, I can assure everyone that this was a very open discussion, and it wasn't driven by any individuals or parties. It was genuinely a good meeting of minds that I was pleased and proud to be part of. So I hope you can all support it. I'm certainly very passionate about it, and I'm looking forward to it, which is, again, positive.
Thank you, Councillor Skegworth, for your contribution. I know you're not a member of this committee, but you're a member of those, what can we call them? The tremendous trio, and your contribution to the TT was absolutely noted. In fact, I'm pleased that we kept politics out of it, because it was only going to move forward if we did that. And I thank all three of you for the work on behalf of the councillors and residents. So I notice Beth's got her hand up, so over to you, Beth.
Thank you, Keith. I'd like to echo all that you said. As a past historical leader of the council for many years, and having been a politician for, I don't know, 30 years or something like that, the town electors meeting was probably the worst you've ever been to in your life. And that was when both we as Liberal Democrats ran the council, and it's changed very little since. Yep. I don't know how many years of life we've given to it that should have been unnecessary. I think Richard thoroughly enjoyed working with two powerful lady councillors. He's thoroughly enjoyed the challenge and contributing to make something that is a breath of fresh air for Woodley. And if people don't come to this, then we might as well give up the town electors meeting, because I don't see that we'll be able to do a lot better but talk about what we do in a fascinating, interesting, not boring and dry old way that we've done in the past too many years. So thank you to all three of you. Richard didn't have to put my arm behind my back when we talked about support for this, because when I read the paperwork, I thought anything's worth a try, but I think not only is this worth a try, it will become something more permanent and grow and get better each year. So thank you to all of you, and I'd be very happy to support it.
Thank you, Beth. Councillor Chadwick.
Actually, I just wonder, I'm sure it does say here somewhere, but will the meeting be a virtual one? It will, right, thank you.
Yes, it will be by Zoom.
Right, okay, thank you.
Which means we can have up to 100 delegates. There's hopeful for you.
Thank you.
Right, if there's no other questions, I've got a couple. Oh, Deborah?
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to draw your attention to the fact that you need to approve the terms of reference of the little working party that we had, but also the plan in the terms of reference is that what we're planning goes forward to full council for final approval. So I'm sorry to interrupt and just say that. It's just that needs confirming, that's all.
That's fine. I've got a couple questions. I notice in the middle meeting, the 18th of March, that said Councillor Skegworth agreed to contact members of the Labour group to outline plans. Did you do that, and what were their views? Unfortunately, there isn't a Labour member here.
Yeah, oddly enough, I didn't manage to contact Councillor Nagra. I did email him and filled him in. I did speak to Councillor Al-Sanjani. We had an email exchange, but she's, I think, broadly of a similar mindset. I won't go into the full detail. I think her mentality was very much, the council is the council, but this is a different meeting, and therefore trying something different is not harmful. I hope she doesn't mind me paraphrasing her response, but yes, reasonably well on board, and I believe Councillor Nagra had a chance to be part of it and chose not to. So I hope that next time round, if we revisit it, we'll have a Labour member in there as well, because actually the cross-party bit worked well, and it would be great if we got that Labour member in there to be part of the gang in the future. So yes, they are basically
good.
content, certainly not objecting.
Right, thank you for reaching out to them, because it is important for that sort of meeting and the sort of meeting we're talking about that it really has unanimous support from all councillors, not just parties. My second question really is a process one, which may not have been thought through yet, is have we thought about a mechanism of capturing, or if we could, before and after views? I see Councillor Anderson is nodding. Okay, fine. You don't need to tell me the detail, just that you got it covered, because I think that's very, very important. You know,
it's part of the comms strategy, Keith.
Okay, brilliant. So we now have to vote on the draft terms of reference, which was a separate piece of paper.
So Councillor McCann has his hand up.
Oh,
Chair.
sorry, Councillor McCann.
That's no problem. I'm quite happy to agree to terms and reference and all that as well. Mine is more slight technical point. If we're going to have virtual meetings, which the public are participants of, and sometimes the public can be just as rowdy as some members, do standing orders apply to this new process? I assume they would. If they don't, do we have to change anything before we run into this meeting so that we're covered through our own standing orders about members wanting to speak, the public wanting to speak, and all that sort of stuff? So it's more of a technical point. Do standing orders apply to this as currently would do on Zoom? If they do, then that would be a simple, fantastic thing. If not, then we just need to just make sure that we don't make ourselves look a bit silly by not, because the public don't understand how we may be a bit more technically, I'm sorry, you have to wait, switch people off and all this kind of thing. Do you see what I'm trying to say, Chair?
So can I take that, Keith?
Please do.
Right, so we're going to run this like I would run any engagement event with the public. You're very clear at the start what the ground rules are. You tell them what's going to happen. You tell them you're going to silence everybody, because we will silence everybody at the start of it, because we want the people that are going to do the presentations to be heard. We will open the floor up at the end, and it will be a facilitated session at the end. So, you know, this is not a council meeting in terms of, you know, standing orders. I hadn't even considered whether standing orders would happen, because I just considered it to be a community engagement event. So if we need to do that differently, then we need to know, because the plan is to treat it like any other facilitated session that we would with members of the community.
That was quite helpful, but thank you. That was quite helpful. But I actually asked a technical question. Are we covered? Not what do we think we are covered? And the clerk or one of the officers can just simply say yes or no. Even if it is, we have to go back and double check, because you've got council members representing the council at public meetings. Therefore, can we just clarify what that process is? Are we right? Are we wrong? Could somebody please explain?
I'm not sure that the standing orders that we have, the standing orders and the financial regulations that we have refer to, in fact, I'm sure they don't refer to the town electors. There are certain things that you can do at town electors. You can call a poll, you can answer questions, you can ask questions. But I don't believe that the standing orders that we operate cover that particular meeting. I can check.
It would be helpful just to make sure, because sometimes these meetings can get quite lively and we don't want people being instructed, you will do this and you will do that. And then it is just down to the discretion of whoever. So if you just clarify that standing orders do not apply, then that would be helpful. Or standing orders do apply. And that's it. Before the meeting starts, obviously. Thank you, Chair.
I can just confirm that there is no reference to the words town electors in the standing orders at present.
But we can easily cover ourselves by just the very first statement made is we are suspending standing orders. There is no voting because councillors won't be needed to be there. No, even people like myself, I won't need to be there because I'm not participating. I will be there to listen, but I can't, so you wouldn't have a vote in that sense.
Exactly. I think that my point's not to be a little bit awkward, Tom. I do quite like that sometimes. It's more about, let's do, if the rules don't apply, the rules don't apply, not partially apply, not in bits. So you're telling members that the rules don't apply, then the rules don't apply. That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
So I think we need to be really careful with language, because for lay participants and members of the community, we are suspending standing orders means absolutely nothing.
Exactly.
So, I think we need to do that before the event to members. And I would like to say we would like as many councillors as possible to attend this, because I think it shows a sense of solidarity, and we would expect you all to be supportive of the last bit where people get the opportunity to ask questions. It will be closely managed, and we will have lists and people will know what they can and can't ask, because some of it's related to Wokingham and some of it's related to us. And again, that will go out with the comms. But it would be lovely to have members, of the council present so that we can show a united front. Thank you. Thanks.
It is primarily electorates that we're aiming this meeting to. It's not a green policy or anything like that. So yes, and everyone's support is very much appreciated.
And it's also not a forum for political questioning from any party. Well, that's the danger, that we councillors, regardless of party, we can easily take over any public meeting like that. Personally, I would like everybody to go be there, yes, to support, but let the residents ask the questions, not us ask the questions. And I would hope that we all have enough discipline within ourselves to actually just be there and be quiet and listen, and only participate if the chair asks you to. We can't formalize that, but I think that if we don't do that, it will jeopardize the success, because there's nothing quicker to stop someone coming to an event like that than listening to politicians bickering. We think we've got good questions. For the public, just see it as bickering. Enough said. We just need to note that. We don't need to vote on it, do we, Deborah?
You do need to make a recommendation to full council, because that's what's set out in the terms of reference. I'm sorry.
Okay.
And I'll change the date, because it should be the 4th of May, not the 11th of May.
Okay. All those who agree, please raise your hands. Okay. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 8, Woodley Town Centre Management Initiative, page 23. You've got a couple of us who were there at the meeting, so we could potentially ask questions, but I hope it's really just to note and receive. Any comments or questions on it? And I'll move on. Yes, Councillor McCann. You've got a lovely fingernails.
I haven't even got my hand up yet. Hold on a minute.
well, I know you're going to do it.
Trouble I have is the hand buttons.
Go on then. You commented on every other item. You might as well go for this one.
Right. Thank you. I have a couple of technical questions, and it's about item 3, financial update budget monitoring, where it refers to the council leader as saying they will guarantee any losses by the town council on the 9th of February. Can somebody confirm, did we actually agree to do that? It doesn't spring to my mind that we did, but and the other point that follows on.
Can I clarify?
Sorry, Keith.
Can I clarify? Yeah. Since the Woodley Town, or TCMI, is now fully incorporated, as you heard earlier, to the Town Council, then of course the Town Council will indemnify against losses that the Town Council makes. If you follow, it's not a separate organisation anymore. It's not totally separate. It has been fully incorporated into.
Okay. Can you tell me? Can you tell me the date of when it was incorporated into the Town Council? Someone.
I can't.
Or if you haven't got it to hand,
could
someone circulate it to me?
The Town Clerk might be able to answer, or Kevin might be able to answer. I think the Town Council.
Sorry, I can answer that, and I think it was the 1st of April last year.
And fully agreed, I believe, wasn't it?
Okay, thank you. Second point is, prior to this incorporation and forward of the corporation, was Woodley Town Centre, WTCMI, issuing invoices in its name, and issuing invoices and receipts in its name, and forward of being incorporated, is it issuing invoices and receipts in its name, and has it registered for VAT yet? Thank you.
I think the whole reason for them incorporating with the Town Council was to correct an anomaly where that was happening before and it doesn't happen now.
So am I correct in saying that before the 1st of April, WTCMI was issuing invoices and receipts in its name and not Woodley Town Council? And if that's the case, why was Woodley Town Council claiming back the VAT on money spent by another organisation? You haven't answered my point about the VAT being registered or not yet. Thank you.
Can I make a suggestion moving this forward? Clearly.
Well, sorry, Chair. I've asked the question of the clerk.
I know.
The clerk.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to make a suggestion, please, Councillor McCann, is that the Town Clerk isn't a VAT specialist, that we employ a consultant to answer your very detailed and knowledgeable VAT questions, which I think it is unreasonable to expect a Town Clerk or any of us, unless you're a finance person. Is what's it? There's a spider up there. You're looking up in the ceiling at the moment. So could I suggest that this committee approves the expenditure to get a consultant in, or a VAT expert, to help the Town Clerk to answer your perfectly valid and good questions on VAT. It's just a suggestion. Over to you, Deborah.
Sorry. I don't know what I'm answering. Sorry.
Councillor McCann's question.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the way forward, because I don't know. I'm not a VAT expert, and neither is the finance officer.
Okay, but that's handy to know. Can members get this back relatively quickly? In other words, before our next resource meeting, so we can have an update before that? I would think it's pretty straightforward to ask these questions for an organisation of this size. And the other thing would be, in the future, will the council be claiming VAT for another incorporated organisation, or is it VAT registered? That's the third time I've asked this question. Is it now currently VAT registered? 3 times I've asked the same question.
I'm sorry, is what VAT registered? The town council is
For the
VAT
fourth
registered.
time, for the fourth time,
Councillor McCann,
is
you really don't need to speak to me like that.
VAT is W2CMI in its incorporated state VAT registered. That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm asking. Yes or no? If not, will it be? If not, why not? That's all I'm asking.
Okay, thank you.
Right. So
what's the answer?
So we need a VAT expert to advise us all, because your questions are very detailed. I'm assuming you've actually got a tremendous amount of VAT knowledge for your own business, etc., which is prompting these questions. Maybe you can help out the town.
No, thank you.
Okay.
No, thank you. The town clerk can pay people to get legal advice. That's what she's there for.
Well, she can't pay.
Will somebody answer my question? Will somebody please answer my question on the VAT?
Councillor McCann, you didn't like people speaking over you, so please don't do it to others. Right? I have put a proposal that we authorise the town clerk to get a VAT expert to answer all your very, very detailed questions, and I would suggest we get them here to answer all your follow-up questions, because it would be unreasonable for the town clerk, because your questions are very probing and based on a lot of knowledge, I guess. Okay. The town clerk can't just go and spend that money. We have to authorize it. So I haven't got a clue how much that would cost. Do you have, Councillor McCann, from your knowledge?
That will be something the town clerk will investigate, but it doesn't cost any money to answer a question. Is the organisation that we have that's incorporated, is it currently VAT registered? Yes or no? Nobody's answered. What's the problem? I've asked it 5 times. Why can't somebody just say, yes, it is, or no, it's not?
So, Councillor McCann, I'm a layman, right? Okay, so please advise me. Do individual departments of companies have to register to VAT independently of the main company? Yes or no? It's a very simple question.
Yes, they can.
No.
Yes, they can, and do regularly. It's called a group VAT.
But okay.
And they can all have individual VAT numbers as well.
Okay, so you want to be evasive.
The answer, I'm not asking what they can do. I'm not asking what they can do. I'm asking, have they done it? That's all. Have they done it? Yes or no?
But you're assuming that they have to do it. I don't know.
Then,
right? To me, a department of an organisation, which the TCMI effectively is, doesn't have to independently register for VAT. That to me, common sense and logic says it's a nonsense. So let's move on. Please, let's move on.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for moving on. Why doesn't someone just say they don't know and they will get back to us?
I think
What's the problem with that?
You've been told that the town clerk will get back to you several times. So please, let's move on. You know, you've had the answer many times, but you don't like the answer. We're going to get it resolved. So can I please have a show of hands for an agreement for the town clerk to engage a VAT expert to answer the detailed questions, both the ones Councillor McCann has lodged here and those in the future. Councillor Brindley.
Sorry. Before we do that, I'd like to know a ballpark figure how much it's going to cost us. Because I'm not happy about just spending money so we can ask a detailed question. Well, you know, I'm not being funny, but at the moment we're struggling with our income. So we're being careful. So as far as our residents are concerned, what money we spend should be spent wisely.
I agree. But, you know, Councillor McCann has put some questions on the table. He's a councillor, elected councillor, as he keeps on representing his residents, and he wants answers to those questions.
Yeah, well, I'm representing my residents, and I'm sure many others would, you know, query spending money where it's not necessary. That's all.
I agree. I was using it as a proposal to move forward because I don't want Councillor McCann asking the same question for the 6th, for the 7th, for the 8th, for the 9th, for the 10th at every single meeting. So what I'm trying to do is provide him the answers, not me personally, but a mechanism, because I think the answers are far too detailed than the capacity of a town clerk. You know, you need to be, I don't know, an accountant, a VAT expert or whatever. So, okay, just to clarify then, the principle of the town clerk getting a VAT expert to answer all these specific questions for Councillor McCann, and then for the town clerk to get some estimates to circulate us by email, because I don't want this conversation again next Strategy and Resources. I don't think anybody wants that, but we do want Councillor McCann to get a smile back on his face because he gets his answers. So the proposal is the principle of getting a VAT expert, and town clerk will investigate the costings and then put it around by email, and we will then vote by email with a view to getting all the answers to Councillor McCann's questions for the next S&R meeting. Is that clear?
Can I just ask, can I just say that the auditor says VAT claims continue to be submitted to HMRC on a regular basis. So I don't think there's a problem with VAT.
Well, Councillor McCann believes there is, which is why he's asking the questions.
Yes.
No, and I'm trying to keep everybody happy here. So, and it could be useful, you know, to have that expertise. So that's the proposal. Please, can you raise your hands if you agree with it, please? Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, town clerk? Was that okay? Is there anybody abstaining? No. Anybody against? No. Right. Can I ask you, Councillor McCann, to do something helpful to us? Is please, clearly you've been thinking about these questions, please submit them to the town clerk and the VAT expert before. You do not have to wait to this meeting to ask those detailed questions. Every one of those detailed questions you could have sent to the town clerk, and the town clerk could have come back and said, to this meeting, I need to have a VAT expert to answer your questions. It's going to cost X. So please, can I ask you to communicate directly with the town clerk with your VAT questions that will be put to the VAT expert. Okay?
Chair, point of order, Chair. I actually raised these questions back in June 2019. Why do you think the town council has now incorporated WTCMI? It's because I persistently asked the town clerk off camera, why is it being run like this? Because this is clearly not being run in the right way, in my view. And I think the town clerk, by incorporating it, has now clearly shown that I was correct. I have raised this subject privately to the clerk, and which effectively is to the council, and now I'm raising it publicly. That's all, Chair.
Well done, Councillor McCann. Good pat on the back. Let's move on to agenda item 9, please. Project Schedule 2020-21, Appendix 9, page 25, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just, I think the item to note in there that's changed from last time is to do with the installation of the new electrical supply to the maintenance yard, which did go very smoothly over a couple of days earlier this month. That is now in place, and the contractor is coming back on the, I think, the 7th of May, possibly the 11th of May, so I can't remember, to do the final connection on that, and the grounds team, I must say, did a very good job in reinstating the ground very quickly in order to allow the junior park run to return that weekend. So that bit of work is done. I think the rest of the items on there are largely the same. The only other one I wanted to mention was with regard to the play area, and that was a question that came up at the Leisure Services Committee for a timeline for that to be communicated back to members. And that will be very shortly. We're meeting this week just to flesh that out so we can get back to members, because that's an obvious question for that significant project, which is also going to be something we're talking about, the town electors and things like that. So that will be forthcoming shortly.
Kevin, can you, when you've got it, can you circulate it to every councillor?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a big project that I think all councillors will want to know.
Yeah.
Any Councillor Chadwick? Off you go.
Is it the case, Kevin, that the installation of the new electrical supply is the thing that costs £14,518? I meant to ask this earlier, actually.
Yes, it is.
To repair the power. Oh, right. Okay, thank you. And the other thing is, am I reading this correctly, that the plan is to plant up the garden under the trees at the shops for September?
We're waiting at the moment, very frustratingly, for some works to be done to the trees by Woking and Borough Council. So their tree surgeon will be coming out and doing some works. That's thrown up some other difficulties, because the trees have also got the lights in, which belong to the TCMI, and I know that's an area for concern. So the wheels are in motion to remove those, to allow the tree works, so that we can then get on with the planting scheme. And at the moment, I still don't have a date for the tree works, but I'm pushing for that date. The best I've managed to get so far is early summer, which is a bit vague.
Oh, right. Okay, thanks for telling me that. Yeah, people do ask. Thank you.
They do.
Councillor McCann.
Thank you. Has anybody from your maintenance department recently looked at the memorial garden? And if they have they found it to be satisfactorily maintained? If they haven't, why not? If they have inspected it and found it to be not well maintained, why has it not been well maintained? I would lead you towards the last one, because it's shocking. Thank you.
Towards the last what? Sorry, Councillor McCann.
My last point, it's in a shocking condition. The wood's rotting, it's dilapidated, it's clearly not been looked after. It's not in anybody's radar for maintenance. It's not in any radar for any long-term maintenance, let alone day-to-day maintenance. And I'm asking, why has this been allowed to happen?
Okay, it is maintained regularly by the grounds maintenance team. There are some issues with the planters there, which I think you're referring to, where the timber work is in need of replacement, and that probably is a project that will need to happen at some point. We'll need some financing.
And can I add, I think the Friends of Woodward Park will be most upset with some of your comments about the planting, etc. Because that's
sorry, Chair. I said the maintenance of the place.
Well, that
the
includes
maintenance is
planting,
shocking.
doesn't it?
There is
okay,
there
sorry.
is 9-inch timbers which are rotting.
All right. Okay. Sorry. I apologise. I assumed you included maintenance of the planting, etc., because that's quite a big job. Okay.
No. I'm purely talking about the maintenance of the structures that are within it.
I understand that.
And this does not happen overnight. It happens over years of neglect. So I would like to have something back to say what's going to happen, some sort of report with some sort of estimate of rough monies that it will cost to maintain. After all, it is just as important for people to remember people who have passed in the coming years as well as the past years. And this year has been a very traumatic year for the residents of Woodley. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. You okay, Kevin?
Yeah, that's fine.
What you might want to do is ask our grounds manager to pull out the last 12 months maintenance works that's been carried out there, notwithstanding the points that Councillor McCann has highlighted, because they're obviously physically, you can see them, but just to show that there is some maintenance going on, maybe not to the level that Councillor McCann would like.
Yeah.
Any other comments specifically on the projects? Because that wasn't a comment about projects, it was another item, but that's fine. No, any other comments on the projects? No, okay, that was just a note. So we now can move on to 29, the community grants. Who's going to introduce this? Deborah?
I'm happy to do that.
Oh,
if you
sorry.
wish.
Okay.
No, it's fine. I pulled the report together. Obviously, this is to note the first time I've done this. So if you need more information or details, please just ask and I'll do my best to find that for you. So the first grant application we have is for First Days Children's Charity. They support children living in poverty across Berkshire and beyond. They're requesting a grant for £250 specifically for a project or to support a project they're undertaking at the moment to set up a new school uniform hub for families in Woodley. That's going to be running, I think it might have already started, out of Woodford Park Leisure Centre. The Town Council currently is providing them the space free of charge. I believe it's for a couple of hours every Wednesday afternoon. So the funding they've asked for is to help provide towards items they need for COVID compliance. So things like hand gel masks, social distancing signage, marketing materials to let people know where it is and when they get there, how to move around the buildings, storage boxes, hangers, and also volunteer expenses.
Shall we, Matthew, can I make a suggestion?
Please do, yes.
Rather than go through each one in that level of detail, do it the other way round, you know. Are there any there that we disagree with and then give the detail on those?
Absolutely, that makes a lot of sense.
Because it is now 9:30.
I fully agree. In that case, yes, I will go with that suggestion. Does anyone have any of the any of the grants that have been requested? Does anyone have any queries on those, or any that they do not wish to approve for any reason?
I have no problems with all of them. Two things going forward. It would be nice to have an additional column that basically is a tick box to say, did we give a grant to them previous years? So are they new?
Yep.
Or have they had, and maybe you put a number there, which is the number of years they've had it, you know?
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm happy for Southlake Primary School grant, but we do need to be aware that this is correct me if I'm wrong, Beth, I know you can't participate, but you've been a councillor much longer than I have on the town. Certainly in my reign, I can't remember a school applying for a grant. There's no reason why they shouldn't. And I'm just thinking, how many schools have we got in Woodley? You know,
I think we've got 7 primaries and 2 secondaries. I think we have had grant applications from school PTAs in the past. This is not directly for the school, it's the old Parent Teachers Association. Chairman, if you're taking it as a block vote, I'll need to abstain from all of them.
Well, no, I wasn't to do that. We'll cope with you. Don't worry, Beth. You'll have the opportunity to vote for the others. Is there any? Oh, I've got to. Councillor McCann, off you go.
Thank you. Thank you. And it's an interesting and detailed report. I think there's enough information there for us to make some reasonably decent enough agreements to the fundings. And Keith's points about is this an ongoing request, which is not a bad one in itself. My 2 questions are these the only applications we have had to date? because a lot of organisations would have been extremely disrupted over the last year. Is this the sort of normal amount? I seem to think we've got a little bit more than that as per normal. And my third question, for some reason, my questions keep coming up in threes. Has any money been returned from last year's grants where the funding wasn't used because of the lockdown? Chair.
I can definitely answer the first two questions. So yes, these are the only applications that we've received to date from the last time that we reviewed any grants. Having looked back at some of the detail of previous years' worth of grants, it seems like we do get a variety of amounts or number of applications each time. There are how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and one individual grant. My understanding is with the amount of £4,000, you would be looking normally at having sort of £2,000 for the first meeting, £2,000 for the second meeting. So this amount is roughly around that middle point. So I don't think it doesn't look too low compared to some of the numbers we've had in the past.
In terms of your third question, we've never been in this situation before.
Exactly.
So there isn't a mechanism to claw back, and personally, I would vote against such a mechanism, because we're talking about very small numbers here, and the money. How do you prove that they haven't used the money? There's a cost of recovery.
No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm just asking a question. Has any been returned? That's all I'm asking.
Well, there is no mechanism. Okay, there is no mechanism that I know of, both now and historically, to do such a thing, because we've never been in this situation. And it's
absolutely, Chair. I completely agree with you. I get your point. You're absolutely correct. But it does slightly touch on a slightly larger issue, bearing in mind the normal grant system has been pretty steady for the last 10 years. Just off the top of my head, should we be bracing ourselves for more grant applications, and therefore, as grant people given the grant, should we just have a think about, will this budget be enough if we get more people applying for it, because it's been a very awkward and funny year? I don't want people to feel, and organisations to feel, that they can't apply for it, because clearly it's been quite a traumatic experience for it. Almost every organisation that is living and or working within the community of Woodley.
I think time will tell.
Thank you.
I think time will tell. We can only review what's in front of us. We can't really anticipate another 30 or 40 and set the budget, and then it's not used, because people will turn around and say, well, hang on a minute, you've over budgeted for that. So we just have to take things as they come. We have refused them in the past. I'm sure under Beth's regime also, some grants were refused because it wasn't appropriate. More often than not enough Woodley content, because that's what we're here for, is for our Woodley residents. So we'll see what happens, Councillor McCann. Okay, can I move on? So we just need to formally vote.
To agree.
Yeah, all those in favour for the ones that are on the 3 pages, I think it is, all those, please raise your hands. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay. Right. Next item. Community infrastructure levy, 11A.
Sorry, Keith, can I just make a point, actually? It's just, I wondered how long the grant has been at the level of £250.
As long as I've been around, but probably, I don't know, Beth could answer historically.
Oh, since Moses was a lad.
Yeah, and this wouldn't be the year to change it, but I just thought, can we possibly think about putting it up a little bit, maybe at some point in the future?
Chairman, sorry.
Go on,
Could we
Councillor
note in the minutes that my vote didn't include the
Yeah,
South Lake
sorry.
Primary School vote?
Sorry, Beth.
Yes, absolutely.
Trying to manage you lot is very difficult. No comment. Right. So moving on to 11. Oh, sorry. And one of the things I was going to say is I believe the setting of this was not meant to be like a big mainstream grant. There's
No,
an alternative mechanism for that. And £250 seems, there's no science behind it, but seems a good number. It's not too small and it's not too large. I think that's why it's still 250. But if this committee wants to in the future review that, which has an impact on the budget or the impact on the number of people who get it with the same budget, we can certainly do that. We just need to think about it. So again, trying to push on. 11A and 11B is to note the SIL, February SIL proportion and the total SIL payments. I don't see there should be any debate on this. It's a factual number that is given to us. Does anybody want to raise a question? Otherwise, I'd like to move on. Okay. Now, very important one, which I'm sure was why Councillor Doyle is here, is 12A and B, developing youth strategy. I'll hand over to Deborah on this one. And I know Chris is one of the attendees, by the way.
Yes. Is he actually coming for this bit of the meeting?
Yeah, shall I bring him in?
Please.
It might be a good idea.
Yeah, Chris, I'm about to drag you in the nicest possible way.
Do we clap when he comes in? Hooray! Yeah, he's dropped out of the attendees.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear.
Can you see me?
No.
Nope.
That may be for the best, frankly, at my age, wearing my PVC onesie and my purple wig. Good evening to you. I hope you're all well. I'm aware of the hour and of the work that you've been doing this evening, so I can be short and sweet. It was very clear to me in the discussion that we had about the provision of youth services that what was missing critically was some kind of strategy for youth provision going forward. And I think this is particularly important because it's a very limited resource at the moment that needs to deliver the best possible value for your residents and for the town council. Also, I think by taking the long, well, I don't think, I know that by taking the long view, perhaps a 3 to 5 year strategy, we can deliver yet more value because we can actually, A, provide some kind of developmental plan, and B, provide some kind of structure and stability for the suppliers who might be delivering on the part of the town council. So for those reasons, I have no doubt that a youth strategy is the way forward. And as I've indicated in the proposal, there are plenty of opportunities for us to continue to combine ideas. That was one of the great strengths of the discussion that we had, and I hope Councillor Doyle would agree that we had a very good exchange of ideas and lots of very positive suggestions. But also to balance that with the reality of the budget that's available now, and perhaps look forward to a budget that might be available in the future if we can use some seed money perhaps for generating more funds going forward. As you know, Woodley Town Council is under no obligation to provide this service, but it has done, and it's expressed its interest to continue to do so, to want to continue to do so, which is a magnificent thing in my view. And I would be most focused on helping get best value for money. One thing I would like to flag is that in the proposal, I didn't include really anything about the voice of young people. And in our discussions, it was very clear to me from the youth workers, the specialists, and from other people in the group that the voice of young people is, we don't quite understand what they want, what younger young people want and what older young people want, and that there needs to be more consultation. But what I wanted to assure you of was that in May and in June, I had assumed that there would be a consultation exercise with young people, which we've undertaken before in Basingstoke, for example, so that young people's voices are really heard. So to summarise, I think there are two things. We need a plan to make the most out of the resources available and perhaps to increase them over time. And we need to have a vehicle that will amplify the voices of young people. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chris. And can I say, as I participated in this meeting, it was a very, very interesting and enlightening meeting with lots and lots of views flying around. And I think your conclusion about not having a strategy underpinned by the views of the youth, as you've just been saying, has caused us difficulties in the past. And I personally really like that consultation concept of youth, because I've consistently said, we don't know. None of us know. We might think we know, but we don't know what our youth actually want at the moment. Even organisations like Jack, who've been heavily involved in youth, much more than all of us probably combined over the years, even they don't know. So I like the consultation idea, but I'll throw it open to the floor. And Councillor Doyle, if you wish to participate in this discussion, please feel free. I know you're not a member of the committee, but you were a valued member of that working party, and I'm sure you would probably want to participate in this as well. So I'll shut up, and I've seen Councillor Rowland's got her hand up.
Yes, thank you, Keith. Chris, just for the sake of clarity, in your report on page 2 on the third paragraph, I don't actually do paid work in secondary education. I'm a member of the senior governance team.
I beg your pardon, Beth. We'll change those notes.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I'd like to say I'm concerned about Paul Cassidy worrying that the grant for ARC may be reduced as we expand youth work rather than counselling work. I'd like the council to assure Paul that that certainly isn't our intention. And in fact, if anything, ARC needs more right now because of the situation our young people have been in over the last year or so. They're very needed for the counselling that they do with young people. And that was one of my concerns that I'd like us to note right at the beginning as we're looking at what else that we can do. That's all I'd like to say for now.
Can I just come back on that, Beth? I agree that's important, but and we should have every intention to continue it. But I think it would be wrong for us to guarantee it for the future, because we won't be here in the future. And I think it's wrong to tie in a future ruling group, whatever that might be, of this. We need to do it as we do on the budget setting. They make their claim. I think historically we've always given what they've asked for. Not automatically, we've thought about it.
Yeah, perhaps I've expressed that wrongly, that the grant for ARC won't be affected by us expanding youth work for now, because it's all part of one and the same thing, although it looks at two different aspects of youth. One is health and mental health.
I think in the short term, yes.
Yeah.
Longer term, we can't guarantee that.
No, for the time being. I mean, ARC might not be there in the future anyway, but for now, it's not our intention to reduce ARC's grant as a result of what we're doing on this report.
If I might, Chair, the question of procurement is always a fascinating one, and I've been involved in a great deal of procurement over my overlong career, and it's always a fine balance between imagining this kind of abstract where there is an open market out there of people and organizations willing to jump in at the moment's notice with an invitation, and the reality, which is that there are very limited numbers of organizations out there waiting to jump in, and sometimes, you know, better the devil you know. So it's always a fine balance, in my experience, to encourage those organizations who are perhaps already delivering on a micro basis, and to support them, as indeed was the case with the catering at the centre. And balancing that with a broader view, it's always a tricky one, in my experience, but manageable.
Councillor Doyle, you're next.
Thank you very much, Chairman. The first thing that I'd like to mention is I'm a little bit confused. The original intention of all of this was to determine what sort of tender we were going to invite other parties to quote for. That seems to have been turned into something other than that. It seems to have been turned into, well, we don't really know what we want, so we don't know what to tender for. Well, there is another way of approaching this, and that is to go out to various bodies and ask them what they might be able to provide us with. And I suggest we do this with people that know what they're doing. That doesn't really cost us anything, and it might bring back some information that be of great value to us as a council. The other thing is that I thought the requirement to go out to tender was a legal requirement. Am I mistaken in believing that?
I think the value of it, the likely annual value of it, means that there is a requirement to go out to tender. That's my understanding.
Okay, thank you. So you've clarified that it was a legal requirement to go out to tender. The other thing is that I don't particularly have any aversion to using somebody like, is it Paul, the ARC chap? Is his name Paul?
Yeah.
He seems to be a pretty straightforward sort of fella, and I think what he does adds some value. But the evidence of my eyes with the research that I have made is that our children are proving to be somewhat more robust than we think they are. Children are quite famously very good at adapting to things, and it appears that through this awful crisis that we've all been going through, the children are adapting very well to it. And I think any running out worried about our children's mental health, etc., should be taken very carefully. It's a step that we need to get advice on rather than rushing into putting money into it. I'm not convinced, based on what I've read from fairly good sources, that we really need to spend more money in that area. Then the last thing that I just want to mention is that I have pretty good ideas about what we should be doing. I wouldn't mind putting those to some professional bodies that provide these services and get their opinion on it. And perhaps Chris could help us in doing that, in what he's proposing to do. I could give him names and make introductions to the appropriate people. And I'm quite sure that they would come along and give us some very, very good things to think about. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Dorr, for your contribution. Councillor McCann, I'm conscious of the time. I'm sorry, I'm trying to push this along. It's very important, but we may well have to extend.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions about the strategy. I'm not as worried about the long-term budgetary implications. I think, and financial commitments of this organisation at this council to future councils. That's what service level agreements are about, is about the transfer smoothly from one to another. So I'm not as worried about tying hands as perhaps the leader of the council is suggesting. It is all very good having a strategy. It is all very good having a detailed plan. And it's even pretty good having a service level agreement from which you can judge the outcomes of this strategy and the value for money. But most of these strategies will fall down at the first hurdle is, where do the youth meet? So should the strategy include a focal point or indeed a location within it, so that we as an organisation could turn around and say, we could, for example, set aside an area of land within the town council's portfolio that would be designated for a mobile youth club, porta cabin. Would the strategy include something? Would the strategy include something like one of our more least used town council halls being used more as a youth club focal point?
Could I address that, Chair?
Examples. Yes.
Could I address that, Keith?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, Councillor McCann, absolutely. One of the things I mentioned in the proposal was that we should actually look at those options, including property that the town council currently has access to, and look at those possibilities and options one against the other. I mean, in terms of, a big functioning youth hub, I think that would have to be a very long-term objective, simply because the budget would come nowhere near supporting that. But that doesn't mean there aren't plenty of options to make the best of the opportunities and the facilities that the town council might have now. And what I would do is line those things up against one another, having consulted to get a range of opinions, and give you an honest appraisal of what we thought would work, and what would be more difficult, and what would be completely out of kilter. So yes, I think that's the whole point. The process of developing the strategy means you have to be open-minded, and you have to consider a whole range of options. That was what came out of the recent discussion, in my view.
Thank you for your contribution, Councillor McCann. Councillor Chadwick.
Yes, I just wondered if it's known how much support there is in Woodley for the Duke of Edinburgh Award, and whether that's something that could come into the scope of what you're thinking of.
Yeah, and the Arts Awards might well, resurface once we've all stopped panicking. Not unreasonably, but yes, and there are lots of ways in which you can fund activity and projects. Certainly, I would argue that having a strategy and perhaps having a focus on somebody who's going to drive the youth work forward and deliver the strategy for you is the best way.
Okay, we're going to have many more bites of the cherry on this. This was just a quick update of what's gone on and a proposal for the next steps. Deborah, I note there's no recommendations here. I assume a recommendation is we go ahead with the proposal as per page 35, 36.
Yes, and if I can just explain that there is the money for Chris Moore to do that work sits in leisure services, both as £3,000 allocated to youth work for the year, but also the £27,000 that's sitting there that we would have paid, possibly we would pay someone through the year, but obviously we haven't used that in April and we probably won't use it in May or June in terms of the time scale that we're talking about. So there would be sufficient funds to use, or you could take it from reserves, if you wanted to do that as well.
Right, so that's clear. The one thing I would also add, I know we have a hierarchy. The Community Youth Partnership reports into the leisure services, but because this is a potential, it's the SLA, that reports into us. I actually think this is important enough that it should be a full council decision. I'm going to add a second recommendation that yes, leisure services and ourselves will do a scrutiny on this, but the ultimate decision on implementing the strategy should be at full council. Okay, so with that amendment, I'm going to ask for all those in favour for the proposal that we see here, and also that the ultimate decision on implementing this strategy will be with full council. All those in favour?
Do you need me to leave at this point, Chair?
I don't know what the protocol is. For me, I don't have a problem with it, but Deborah, there's no problem with Chris staying?
As long as he doesn't put his hand up.
Well, I haven't put mine up yet. He's going to be in the against column. Right.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we're voting on those two proposals. Okay, I think that's unanimous, so I don't need to do the against and abstain. So you got some work coming up, Chris.
Thank you very much. I would like to just echo your comments about Councillor Mills at the beginning, because some of your councillors may not realise that I've been connected with the Town Council since before the Oakwood Centre existed.
Was there a time then?
There was a time then. Yes, we all rode around on horses. There were no cars. And Councillor Mills was involved in various projects and was a very dedicated individual. So I echo your comments on that.
Thank you.
Sadly, Chris, we've all altered and lost some hair since those days.
Oh, tell me about it.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Good night.
Pushing on, item 13, local authority remote call for evidence. I hope we don't need to debate this. My recommendation is individuals who've experienced virtual meetings in various guises should submit their own personal rather than the Town Council one, if that's acceptable, Town Clerk.
Yeah, would you like me to send the link round so that
Yes,
people
please.
can find it? I'll do that.
Right.
Councillor Anderson has a hand up, Chair.
Sorry, Councillor Anderson. You're muted.
Yeah, no, it keeps going off. Can I just say, I did this earlier and it's 16 pages and it's forever. So set yourself some time. It's not a brilliantly worded thing, but it is worth doing. But don't be put off because about 8 pages in, you haven't actually filled anything in yet.
Okay. Councillor McCann, your hand is up.
Thank you. Can I just clarify, did you have a seconder for your proposal? If you didn't, do you think
You're going to tell me you're willing to second it?
I wasn't asking that, Chair. I'm asking
I
the
know, but
question,
I'm
was
asking
it seconded? And if it wasn't seconded, do we have to do the vote again?
Right. So Councillor McCann, a stickler for points of order, etc. So the recommendation I've proposed, Councillor McCann is going to second it. No? No. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Brindley. All those in favour, please vote. Right, that's unanimous. Thank you for keeping us strict. Thank you. Woodford Park Leisure Centre roof update. We've got 5 minutes left.
Thank you, Chair. Just to note, actually, following on from the committee's resolution at the last meeting, which was to proceed in acceptance of a Part 36 offer, that was communicated and we didn't hear back. Subsequently, we have heard back from the company solicitors with a couple of technical questions which have been answered, so we're just waiting again. What I'll do is, as soon as we have a response from that, is to communicate that to members of the committee so that you know where that is. And just to note that that's not in a confidential report at this point, because the information that's there in the agenda is to do with things that have already happened or actions that have been taken, rather than a discussion about the council's position. So if members do want to explore that further or talk about it, then that might need to go into a confidential session.
Okay. I think it's very succinct. If you've got any specific questions, bearing the lateness of the day, can you please contact Kevin direct? Because I think this is quite a factual report. Moving on to...
Councillor McCann has his hand up, Chair.
Okay. Councillor McCann.
Thank you. You've briefly touched on my question, which is, why is this information not confidential when exactly the same information and the decision to do that has been kept confidential for the last 3, maybe 4 meetings? Could you just explain that a little bit more in a bit more detail? Because as far as I'm aware, we have made an offer. We've attempted to come to an agreement. They have said yes, but nothing has happened. So they might actually just turn and say, well, no, it's not. We're not going to do it. I'm confused about why.
Okay.
Could you explain your thinking, please?
Yes. The last time that this information came to the council, you hadn't decided what you were going to do, which is the key point. And to have that discussion in a public forum and show your hand, so to speak, to the public and your opposition, if that's not the right term, but the other party, would severely compromise the council's negotiating position from a legal perspective. The fact that that's subsequent now, you've already decided that's what you were going to do, so nothing confidential about that, and so that's why that's there. If there's something else that needs discussion by the committee to decide what the council's going to do, again, that would be a confidential item, so as not to compromise the council's position.
So yeah, thank you. So just to clarify, it was the process of making the decision that was confidential before, and now we've made the decision. It is no longer a process issue. This is just a fact. So therefore, it's not confidential. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
And also,
okay, thank you.
Councillor McCann, I don't know whether you realise, but you made it the wrong way round. We didn't make an offer to them. They made an offer to us,
sorry,
which we accepted.
Yeah,
right.
But
Okay, thank you. Future agenda items, publicity and website. We've got 2 minutes. If you've got any ideas for the future agenda items and publicity and website, please can you let Matthew know, and he will incorporate them accordingly. And on that note, thank you all for the perseverance. I've learned a lot more about that than I ever wanted to learn, and I think I'm going to learn an even lot more. You know, I'm engaged with McCann Associates to run a VAT training session for us all. And I'll say, calling the meeting to